You're not sad because she left. You're sad because you keep going back. Every night, same ritual. You open her Instagram. You read the old messages. You replay the last conversation in your head, and you change your answers. You say the right things this time. You fix it. You win her back. In your mind. But in reality, you're kneeling in front of a grave and digging it deeper with your own hands. That stops today. Let me describe your last 30 days. You wake up, and the first thought that hits you is her. Not a gentle thought. A punch. Right in the chest. Before your eyes are even fully open, your brain has already started the movie. The memories. The moments. That specific laugh she had. The way she said your name. The plans you made together that now live nowhere except inside your skull, rotting. You get up. You function. You go through the motions. Work, food, gym, maybe. If you haven't abandoned that yet. You talk to people and you smile and you say, "I'm fine," so many times that the words start to feel like a foreign language. Empty sounds coming from an empty chest. And then night comes. Night is the enemy. Because at night, the distractions die. The noise stops. And it's just you. And the wound. And instead of letting it close, instead of leaving it alone, you pick at it. You go back to the photos. You read the last conversation again, like maybe this time the words will arrange themselves differently and make sense. You check if she's online. You draft a message you'll never send. Or worse, you send it. You are not grieving. You are self-harming. There is a difference. Grieving is the natural process of loss moving through you. It has a direction. It goes forward, even when it's slow. Grief is rain. It falls. It soaks you. It passes. What you are doing is not grief. What you are doing is standing in the rain, refusing to move, and then wondering why you're drowning. You keep reopening the wound because some part of you believes, really believes, that if you think about it enough, you can undo it. That if you analyze it enough, you'll find the hidden answer, the secret variable, the one thing you missed that explains everything and fixes everything. You believe the pain has a solution. You believe understanding equals healing. It doesn't. Some wounds don't need to be understood. They need to be left alone. But nobody told you that. Nobody told you that the most powerful thing a man can do after a battle is walk away from the battlefield. Not because he's weak, because he's smart enough to know the war is over. The man who keeps fighting a finished war isn't brave. He's lost. And right now, brother, you are lost. But being lost is not the same as being destroyed. Being lost means you still have the capacity to find your way. And that's exactly what we're doing today. If this is hitting you somewhere real, somewhere you haven't let anyone else reach, you're in the right place. This channel exists for men who are ready to be honest with themselves and do the hard work of becoming something greater than their pain. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because what's coming next on this channel is going to change the way you see yourself completely. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. He commanded legions. He had absolute power over millions of lives. And yet he wrote in his private journal, a journal he never intended anyone to read, words that sound like they were written by a man sitting alone in a dark room, just like you. He wrote about impermanence, about loss, about the things we cannot control. He didn't write those things because he was weak. He wrote them because he was wise enough to know that the greatest battle any man faces is not external. It's internal. It's the battle to stop fighting reality. Here is the first truth the Stoics taught, and it is brutal in its simplicity. There are things within your control, and there are things outside your control. Your job, your only job, is to know the difference, and to stop spending your energy on things that were never yours to command. She left. That is outside your control. What she felt, what she decided, what she chose. Those things were never yours to command. You can have influence. You can show up with integrity. You can love with everything you have. But you cannot force the outcome. You cannot override another person's free will. And the moment you accepted the relationship, you accepted that risk. You knew the risk. You just never thought it would come due. It came due. And now, you're in debt to reality. The Stoics called the response to this Amor Fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance, not resignation, not "it is what it is," said by someone who has given up. Amor Fati is something far more aggressive than that. It is the decision, the active, deliberate warrior decision, to look at everything that has happened to you, the good and the devastating, and say, "This is mine. I claim it. I will use it." Think about the greatest anime characters you've ever watched go through their darkest moments. Naruto, rejected by his village, eating alone, sleeping alone, training while everyone slept. Rock Lee, told he had no talent, no chakra, nothing. Training until his hands bled. Guts from Berserk, losing everything, carrying a wound so deep it would have destroyed any ordinary man. What made them different wasn't that they didn't feel pain. They felt it completely. What made them different was what they did with the pain. They forged it. They took the raw material of suffering and they hammered it into something harder, something sharper, something that could cut through whatever came next. That is Amor Fati in practice. You don't pretend it didn't hurt. You don't meditate the pain away. You look directly at it, like a warrior looks at a scar, and you say, "This made me. This is part of my armor now." But here's where most men fail. They understand this concept intellectually. They nod along. They feel inspired for 48 hours. And then they go back and open her Instagram again. Why? Because knowing the philosophy is not the same as living it. And living it requires you to do something most men in pain desperately avoid doing. It requires you to stop returning, stop reanalyzing, stop trying to extract closure from a source that cannot give it to you. Closure is not something she owes you. Closure is not a conversation you're owed. Closure is not found in her final explanation, or her last message, or the reason she gave you that you replay at 2 a.m., trying to decode like it's an ancient text. Closure is something you build, alone, with your own hands, out of the decision to stop going back. Every time you go back, you restart the countdown. Every time you open that wound, you add weeks to your own recovery. You are not healing, you are cycling. And the cycle will continue for as long as you let it. The Stoics had a practice called negative visualization, the deliberate contemplation of loss, not to make you sad, but to make you awake, to strip away the illusion that anything in this life is permanent. The relationship was never permanent. The version of you that existed inside that relationship was never permanent. The comfort, the routines, the future you imagined, none of it was permanent. But here is what is permanent. Who you choose to become in response. That is permanent. That stays. That compounds. And that belongs entirely to you. This is where most self-help content goes soft. This is where the mentor tells you to journal your feelings and drink chamomile tea and be gentle with yourself. That's not what this is. This is the part where your training begins. Step 1. Execute a hard no contact. And understand why it's not about her. You've probably heard of no contact as a tactic. A strategy to make her miss you. A way to potentially get her back. That is not what this is. Forget that framing entirely. No contact done for the purpose of making her come back is still you handing your power to her. You're still operating in her orbit. You're still making your peace conditional on her reaction. Real no contact is a declaration of sovereignty. It means I am removing this input from my system because it is corrupting my data. It means every time I check her profile, I am telling my own nervous system that she is a threat I need to monitor. I am keeping my body in a state of low-grade emergency. I am burning cortisol on someone who is not burning any on me. Delete the thread. Archive the photos. Don't delete them yet if you're not ready, but get them out of your daily reach. Mute her. Block if necessary, not out of anger, but out of respect for your own healing process. Remove the inputs. Every single one. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. Right now it is pattern matching everything to her. Songs, places, smells, times of day. You can't control all of that, but you can control the deliberate inputs. You can stop feeding the pattern, and slowly, the pattern weakens. The neural pathway fades. Not because you forgot her. You won't forget her, nor should you. But because you stopped irrigating that ground. You are redirecting the water. Step 2. Redirect your energy into something that produces a physical result. Pain needs somewhere to go. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience, and it is ancient warrior wisdom at the same time. The samurai who lost everything in battle did not sit in his room and process his feelings for 6 months. He trained. He sharpened his sword. He refined his technique until the art of his craft became a form of meditation so deep that the grief had no room to breathe. You need a physical output, not as distraction. Distraction is for cowards, as transformation. Pick something that produces a measurable result you can see building over time. The gym is the most obvious, and for good reason. The body keeps score, and when you start changing the body, the mind follows. But it doesn't have to be the gym. It can be a martial art. It can be a skill you've neglected. It can be building something with your hands. It can be running distance you've never run before. The point is this: you need to prove to yourself, through physical evidence, that you are capable of growth. Right now, your identity is built around loss. You are the man who was left. You need to build new evidence, new data points that tell a different story about who you are. Every rep, every session, every day you show up when you don't want to, that is evidence. Stack it, let it build. Because in 3 months, when you look in the mirror and the man looking back is different from the man who was on his knees in that grief, that moment will hit harder than any message she could ever send you. Step 3. Stop telling the story. This is the one nobody wants to hear. Stop telling people what happened. Stop going over it with your friends. Stop being the main character of the breakup narrative every time someone asks how you're doing. Stop rehearsing it. Every time you tell the story, you relive it. Every time you relive it, you reinforce it. Every time you reinforce it, you deepen the neural groove. You are literally practicing being in pain. You are getting better at it. Say it once. Say it to one person you trust completely. Get it out in full. And then close the chapter. From that point forward, when someone asks how you are, you say, "I'm building." Not, "I'm fine." That's a lie, and your body knows it. Not, "I'm going through it." That's victimhood in casual clothing. "I'm building." 2 words. They tell the truth without feeding the wound. Because here's the samurai's understanding of identity. You are not what happened to you. You are what you repeatedly do, say, and think in response to what happened. You are your habits of mind. And right now, you are habituating yourself into someone whose primary identity is suffering. Break the habit. Change the story. Not by lying to yourself, by choosing which chapter you're currently writing. You are not in the chapter of loss. You are in the chapter of the awakening. You came into this video as a man standing in front of a wound, wondering why it won't close. You leave it knowing the answer. It won't close because you keep touching it. You keep returning to the battlefield. You keep feeding the version of yourself that defines his worth by whether or not she chose him. You've been sitting in the ashes of something that burned down, calling it home. But a warrior doesn't live in ashes. A warrior surveys the wreckage, takes what is useful, and moves. Not because moving is easy, because moving is the only direction that has anything worth reaching. The Stoics didn't promise you a painless life. The great anime masters didn't promise their students an easy path. What they promised was this: the man who endures, who redirects, who refuses to let his suffering become his identity. That man becomes something the comfortable man can never become. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the moment before the arc shifts. Every warrior who ever became legendary first had to survive the moment they thought would break them. This is that moment, and you are still here, still watching, still choosing. That already makes you different from the man who gave up. Now honor that difference. Stop reopening the wound. Let it scar, because scars don't bleed. Scars are armor.